Welcome back, fellow goblins. My name's Lila. This is my black rat snake, General Tullius, who is just super curious and super friendly. One of my all-time favorite species to keep. Oh, there he is. One of my all-time favorite species to keep. However, this video will actually be 10 species that I would never keep and that I don't think most people would be able to keep. Up first, I would never keep dragon snakes. I cannot fathom keeping them. I would have to be so attentive to their care, to their temperatures. Dragon snakes are notoriously difficult to keep, and very, very few keepers can actually manage to keep them alive and healthy. I don't even want to tackle that. They're beautiful snakes, some of the most beautiful snakes out there, but they require much cooler temperatures compared to most reptiles, and they will actually die or get very, very sick in the wrong temperatures if it's too hot. And the people who sell dragon snakes usually don't sell them with any type of alive on arrival guarantee. And generally they'll only ship it if you can guarantee that the temperatures will be adequate for them to be shipped. But even then, I would never ever run that risk. And I just personally don't think that I would be able to keep an animal like that alive and healthy. Up next, another species I would never keep is the elephant trunk snake. I think these snakes are so cool. They're so cute. I would love to have one, but they're very sensitive and they are fully aquatic snakes. And I don't think I could manage to keep an animal like that healthy and happy. I do keep fish. I have a couple rescue fish, and if you're wondering what rescue fish are, I'll probably go into that in another video. I didn't ask for the fish, and I very quickly had to learn how to take care of them. They were in a bad situation, and I had to learn on the fly how to take care of fish, how to cycle a tank, how to make sure that their nitrate levels are proper, that the ammonia levels are proper, all of that. And I can't imagine doing that for a snake, especially a snake that I would care so much about, but with my lifestyle, I don't think I could ensure that it would be, happy and healthy for its entire life. And that sort of applies to really any fully aquatic snake. I do want to one day keep yellow anacondas. I would love to have, and they're semi-aquatic snake, but I don't think I could keep fully aquatic snakes. Up next is one that I used to actually really want, and that is the green iguana. Actually any type of iguana, but I'm going to focus specifically on the green iguana in this video. They are huge. They get 6 feet long plus. They have a really mean temperament most of the time. At least everyone that I've met and everyone I know who keeps one says that they have a really mean temperament, and they need a massive enclosure. We're talking at the bare minimum 6 feet tall. It really should be 8 feet tall. It's got to be at least 6 feet wide. I mean, we're talking a huge, massive enclosure. And then they need access to UVB, basking spots, and they are fully vegetarian, so you need tons and tons and tons of vegetables to feed them. And all of that combined is why I would personally not keep one, at least not at this point in my life. I don't think I would ever keep one. I don't know if that's a species I would ever seek out. I don't think so, but maybe one day that opinion could always change. But they are notoriously mean, and they're one of the most surrendered reptile species there is in the pet trade. The rescue where I actually got General Tullius at, Fresh Start Rescue in North Carolina, they have so many iguanas, so many iguanas, because people just can't take care of them, and I personally would not want to take care of an iguana either. Next up on my list is going to be sulcata tortoises. These tortoises are over 100 pounds. They need a ton of space. You can't keep them in your house. Unless you have a massive house and you could have a designated room for them, you're not going to be able to keep this tortoise in your house. They need a huge outdoor space. They live over 100 years. They're just massive tortoises, and I have no interest in keeping them. I think that it sounds kind of like a nightmare. They need lots of UVB, and I personally would not want to keep a 100+ pound tortoise. And a lot of people, unfortunately, when they buy these, do not give them adequate setups. They don't do their research, and they don't understand the ramifications of owning an animal that will probably outlive you. I don't think I would want to own any animal that outlives me. It's one of the same reasons I don't want birds. Up next on my list is going to be African rock pythons. I have no interest in keeping African rock pythons because they are huge and they are mean. They are super mean. They're notoriously not easy to handle at all. Generally speaking, I'm not one who really cares about the handleability of reptiles. I have a rat snake. My scaleless Texas rat snake is super mean, and I just enjoy watching them exhibit their natural behaviors. It doesn't have to be a snake that I have to handle, but it does make it very difficult when you need to do maintenance. And as you can see, I keep large species. This is my reticulated python. There's a BCC down there and a berm up there. And they're all super sweet. They all have great personalities. I make sure that they're handleable, and it makes it easier to do maintenance in their tanks. It makes it easier to take them out if I have to and treat them for something like mites, and treat their enclosure. Whereas if I were to keep an African rock python, I would need yet another massive enclosure, and it would be insanely difficult to get them out of their enclosure, do the maintenance I need to do, give them medical care if I have to. I'd have to have 2 people present. General rule of thumb with like large species, you should have 2 people present no matter what, you and someone else, just to make sure that nothing does happen. But with an African rock python, I just don't think I would be comfortable doing any sort of maintenance either by myself. I don't want to deal with that. And like I said, they're just notoriously mean, and they're huge. No issue with keeping large species so long as, I can provide the space. Right now I don't have the space, and I don't want to deal with something that's mean. Next up on my list is giant monitor lizards. So I do have a savanna monitor. I wouldn't really consider them a giant monitor. I would consider them like a medium-sized monitor. When I say giant monitor, I'm talking like crocodile monitor and Asian water monitor, and even like Nile monitors. I don't want to deal with a giant lizard. For as much space as giant snakes need, giant lizards need a ton more. Like, for example, savanna monitors are supposed to be in at least an 8-foot long enclosure. It should have 3 to 4 feet in width and 3 to 4 feet in height. Like, they need a huge enclosure. Now, for something like an Asian water monitor, you're gonna need something like that even bigger, because you need a big water space for them to swim in and exhibit their natural behaviors. Because the goal in keeping, you need to provide your reptiles all of their natural behaviors, as much enrichment as you possibly can. And I don't think that I have it in me to build an enclosure that big and then also make sure that they're getting fed adequately. And I don't want to deal with, in the off chance that the monitor has a bad attitude, which generally speaking, like certain species of monitors are known for having a bad attitude. Savanna monitors are actually one of them. Mine just happens to be super sweet. He's a rescue. I'll probably go more in depth on him in another video, because he's actually a really funny story. He was just found running around the city of Charlotte here in North Carolina. And but even him, like he's sweet, but the species itself are known to have a really bad attitude. You'll notice a trend here. I don't mind when smaller species have a bad attitude, because I can take the proper precautions to make sure I don't get bit. However, getting bit by a giant monitor lizard, especially something like a crocodile monitor, they're gonna take a chunk out of you. It's not gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a hospital trip. I have yet to go to the hospital for a bite. I don't think I will go to the hospital for a bite. But if you get bit by a giant monitor, it's definitely gonna be a hospital trip. And I don't want any part of that. On the subject of bites that would get you in the hospital, the next species I would never own is venomous species. I love venomous species. And one day, if I have it in me, I would love to own a Gila monster. But I would never own a species of snake like a gaboon viper. I think that it's way too big of a risk. Obviously, in order to own a species like a venomous species, you should have a lot of training. I just don't have that. I don't think most people have that. The risk is immense. Even with a species like a copperhead, where antivenom is so readily available. I mean, that's a fat hospital bill, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I sure don't, especially now. But as much as I love to look at them, I would never own a venomous snake. I just don't think most people can own venomous snakes, and it really does shock me how readily available they are. And while I'm not one for government intervention in the hobby, I do think that it is a bit too readily available in some areas, if that makes sense, when it does require a lot of training, and it is something that you can actually lose your life, or a limb. You could lose a limb if you don't have access to antivenom. Next up on my list is going to be snapping turtles. Whether it's an alligator snapping turtle or a common snapping turtle, I do not want to keep, nor will I ever keep, snapping turtles. They are huge. They're huge and they're aquatic. You need so much space. You need so much upkeep. They're very messy. They're beautiful animals. And I actually have a friend who has an alligator snapper named Bowser. And I love that for them, but could not be me, They just need so much space. They're so massive. And you need a huge aquatic enclosure, or just an entire pond, where you can maintain the parameters that are required. And I don't foresee myself ever being able to do that. Again, if you haven't noticed, there's a bit of a trend. Me and aquatic things don't really get along. And up next on my list, this one's kind of an obvious one, crocodilians. It would be so awesome and so cool if I could have an alligator, because they're basically dinosaurs. They're awesome. But I don't want to lose a limb, and I don't want to provide an insanely massive pond space. You see people keeping crocodilians on the internet in very inadequate space, in my opinion. And I'm no expert on crocodilians. I love them. I love to learn about them. I could not keep them. The only thing I could maybe foresee myself keeping would be one day like a dwarf caiman. I can't provide that space, and I don't want to get launched on. So this last one would be considered kind of an unpopular opinion by a lot of people, and that is any sort of imported or wild-caught reptile. I have a wild-caught reptile. My emerald tree boa is wild-caught, and I took him to the vet, and he had parasites, and I had to treat the parasites, and he's very, very picky with eating. He's super healthy, but I definitely had to syringe feed him for a while because he was refusing to eat. And even after having acclimated in his enclosure for quite some time. And I just don't think that it's worth the risk, period. A lot of the places that sell imported reptiles, in my opinion, have very little regard for the reptiles themselves. I'm not going to call out any specific businesses, but I've had bad experiences with certain businesses, and the ethics of it are very wishy-washy, and I think it's much, much better to purchase a captive bred animal and support captive breeding of species rather than supporting removing animals from the wild and potentially having a disease and parasite-ridden animal that you are going to have to spend a ton of money on to keep alive and keep healthy. I'm more than happy to spend any amount of money on my animals in order to make sure that they're healthy. But if I can avoid that, I would. Well, that's really it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry if my video is a little bit all over the place. Aside from having really bad ADHD, it's also kind of difficult to make an in-depth video about species that I wouldn't keep because I really don't know a whole lot about them other than the bare minimum. Because I don't keep them, I haven't like gone through the phase of like in-depth research. But if anybody has any questions or would like to see me talk about anything else, let me know. I'm really excited about this channel. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I have so many other ideas. It's just a matter of getting the energy to film. Like I would love to show my reptile room. That's one of the videos that I very much look forward to doing, but everything's always a work in progress. All right, but anyway, I will see you guys next time. If you are interested, I have another channel where I talk about like spirituality, and that will be linked in the description. My TikTok is also at Goblin Queen Lila, and I talk about like witchcraft, spirituality, and snakes on there quite a bit. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye.